Hello and welcome to episode 16 of series 4 of the Engaging Internal Comms podcast. This is the show for employee engagers and internal communicators who like to keep up to date with all that is new in our profession. My name's Craig Smith from the Big Picture People. Welcome to this episode. I just wanted to make you aware at the beginning, actually, of an event that's happening in September 2023. On the 13th and 14th of September in London, there is an event that you may be interested in. It's an employee experience conference. There's a lot of fantastic speakers, really taken by the quality of the speakers. So first of all, Stephen Fry is the keynote speaker, actor, broadcaster and comedian. He's going to be kicking the conference off. But then also there's some amazing professionals from the world of employee engagement and internal communications. So people from Kurtzner, people from the National Grid in the UK, WSP, Pearson, Holland and Barrett, all presenting and talking about their expertise, which I think, rarely do you see such a high quality range of speakers. The event is also available online as well, so you can sign up for it in person or online. So I'm going to put the details of this into the show notes for this episode. You can find it if you go to, it's unily.com/unite. So that's unily.com, unily.com/unite, UNITE. But I'll put a link to that into the show notes. One of the reasons I'm kind of talking about this as well is that I reached out to the event organizers and they very kindly offered a 25% discount code. So if you're interested in this event, you can go to the website that I've just given you, or that you find it in the show notes, and you can register. And if you use the code CRAIGS, that's CRAIGS, no apostrophe after G, between G and S, CRAIGS, you will get a 25% discount both on the online and the in-person event. So I'm going to be there. I'm also going to be looking to do some recording for the show. So trying to talk to some of these people who I've just mentioned. So, and it's a full-on event, 7 a.m. on the first day, all the way through to an evening event on the final day. So real value for money there. So I thought you'd make you aware of that and let you know that I'm going to be there. I'm going to be reporting back from it. I'm going to be recording some interviews with some of the people there, and you'll be able to listen to that. But if you want to attend, you've got the details there. I'll put them into the show notes, and I'll also put that discount, 25% discount code in there for you if you are interested. Okay, so that's taken up a bit of time. So really quickly, what we've got coming up in the next couple of episodes. Next episode on the 15th of August, I've got an interview with Jen O'Ryan from Double Tall Consulting. Jen is going to be telling us all about the importance of inclusivity, diversity and representation in the language that we use in our internal communications, and how we can avoid any inadvertent discriminatory or anti-diverse language in the wording that we use in our internal communications, and that's often a lot more subtle than we think. And then the week after that, 2 weeks after that, on the 29th of August, I've got a fantastic interview with Kerry Ann Stimpson. Kerry Ann is from JMMB Group in Jamaica, which is a financial services company, and Kerry Ann is going to be telling us all about how employee engagement and brand advocacy work together. It's a brilliant interview. Not only the fact that Kerry Ann recorded this at 3 a.m. in the morning Jamaican time, but actually she's got some fantastic ideas about how we can help our employees to be advocates for our company through their own communications, their own social media representations. So I think you'll find that a really interesting interview, which is going out on the 29th of August. Anyway, very long introduction, sorry, but hopefully the event at the beginning is of interest to you. And as I say, if you look in the show notes, you can find some more information about that. And when I'm referring to the show notes, by the way, actually, I keep meaning to say this, I'm referring to the show notes that are on our website version of the podcast. So if you go to engagingic.com and find this episode there, not necessarily through iTunes, you'll see in the show notes all of these links and links to the speaker and any of the links that I mentioned in today's interview as well. Anyway, sorry for the long intro. Hope you enjoy this episode's interview. unsurprisingly, a topic that we've covered on the show before is around employee engagement. We are, after all, engaging internal comms, and we've talked about this on a number of episodes. But it's such a wide-ranging topic that I still think there's many areas we've still yet to explore. One of the areas I wanted to explore in more detail was this whole idea of employee engagement as an investment. I think often, sometimes people see anything to do with engagement, or in some cases, human resource initiatives as a bit of a luxury, a bit of an expensive thing, a bit of a discretionary spend. But actually, there are some hard metrics that back up the need for engagement within organisations. And I guess as employee engagers and internal communicators, we kind of get that already. We're already sold on that. But sometimes it's difficult to make that business case. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time digging into that and really understanding, how do we build a program of employee engagement if we don't have one, or how do we strengthen whatever we have, and how do we build that business case around that? So we're defining engagement here as employees who are healthy, happy, and productive, and feel that sense of belonging within the organization. So we're going to be looking into the costs of that for our organizations, both tangible and intangible, and also within the context of the current job market. I think most clients that I speak to, most organizations I speak to, are finding it more and more difficult to recruit and retain talent at the moment. There's higher turnover. Some job roles are much more difficult to fill at the moment due to a shortage of particular skills within the job market. But also, once we've got people in, it's about retaining them, but also making sure that they continue to grow and develop as well within our organization. And a low engagement culture can make that even more difficult, which I guess is something that we're all familiar with. So that's what we're going to be looking at today in today's interview. We're going to be exploring the whole case around investing in employee engagement, but also give you some practical ideas, some tools that are linked to that with a speaker, with a guest who has lots of experience in that area and has come from an interesting career background themselves. So I hope you find this an inspiring and useful interview. My guest today is Paul Taval. Paul is an organisational expert with experience as a lawyer in the field of social security and employment law. Paul first saw firsthand the ways that social security failed human beings, and he was surprised to learn that despite millions of pounds and dollars and euros being spent to support people when they become ill or disabled, nothing was invested to keep people employable or engaged when they were well. 22 years ago, Paul left the legal side. Leading with his core values, Paul now delivers consulting engagements that help companies to identify and truly live their own values. He shows companies that when they see every employee's full potential, absenteeism decreases, and while enthusiasm and productivity increases. So, hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you on the show. And for our listeners, where are you based, Paul?
I'm based in the Netherlands.
Which part of the Netherlands are you in?
I'm in the eastern part, so I'm away 1.5 hours from Amsterdam.
Okay, fantastic. So I gave a bit of an introduction there, which I lifted from your bio, and it's as in that you identified that you worked in the legal side of business, and then you've now moved into this area of employee engagement. So if you give us a sort of little potted story of how you ended up making that shift, I think that'd be quite interesting, Paul.
Yeah, well, I started as a lawyer in Social Security, as you said. And what you normally see is that you are then defending organizations who pay allowances for Social Security. So you're dealing with people who are unemployed, who are disabled, who can't work for what reason. And you're always in an argument with another lawyer, and you're not talking about human beings. It's a case.
Yeah.
And over the years, I thought this is not the way to do it, because we are talking about human resources. We're not talking about human beings. And in my old job, I was looking at human resources who were ill, unemployed, that kind of stuff. And I thought it should be better, and that's based on positive psychology. If we look at the front end, that we look at people when they are keen, when they're able to work, when they are engaged, when they are well, that we take care of them then. Ask the question, how can we improve your situation instead of waiting that they get ill, unemployed, or whatsoever. So it took me some time, and that had to do with the labor market and economics as well. And then in 1998, I got the first request from one of the biggest supermarkets in the Netherlands to have a look how sick leave was organized and how they could do prevention. And then I thought, we're busy on the backside with big industry on how to make people who are ill better, reintegrate them. But I didn't see any business on that front side. And I was surprised. We weren't paying money for well being,
Mm,
only for sick leave.
yeah.
And that's strange. So that's why I started investigating, reading a lot of books, talking to professors who are specialists on positive psychology and positive health. Then decided to change our business as Team Andare into that front part instead of being busy with people who are no longer part of the community.
Mm, mm, mm. And what do you? And I gave a little alluded to a little bit about what you're doing now. I mean, what specifically are you doing with organisations? I know you said you're working with some big organisations, and you're doing. I know you do public speaking and a lot of
Yeah.
engagements. Well, what are the sort of things you're doing, sort of, to help organisations at the moment?
Um, what we do is we get in an organization, and of course we measure what's going on sick leave, on attrition, on that kind of side, because those are signals that something isn't right within that organization. So we do a culture scan or DNA scan of an organization. We talk with a lot of people, from CEO to people who are the real professionals. And for me, professionals are the ones who are doing the real job,
Yeah,
earning the money. And we ask the question, why are you working here? And it's quite easy. If you ask that question, people will tell you the truth.
yeah,
And then you know, hey, why are you working here? Is it giving some satisfaction? Is it giving work happiness? That kind of stuff. Or are you disengaged or satisfied, which most people are? Most people, if you look at Gallup, they say 70% of the employees are not really engaged, and we call it satisfied. So they come in time, they leave in time, they're happy when they get their money in time, and that's about it.
yeah,
They don't find that extra energy to be more engaged, and that's what we look at. So it's a lot of talking. Sometimes we use some tools that with one of those we can measure the engagement or disengagement. Some are on an iPhone, some you can use on a computer. And then we try to find out what the signals are, which we can turn. So we are really looking, how can we help those people and with them, their organization, to have more engagement and to have more productivity.
Mm. Okay, excellent. I mean, I think when we spoke originally, I'd mentioned to you that I used to work in a manufacturing environment, and the idea of preventative maintenance with machines was quite common. And I guess in a very crude analogy, that's what we're talking about here. It's kind of how do we wait until our people get to the point of breaking, but
Yep.
we're kind of tending to. I mean, what are some of the reasons you think that organizations do that? Because my experience with organizations is, they're not. It's not a malevolent thing. It's genuinely the people in organizations at senior level, from my experience, are trying to do the best they can. It's just often through lack of awareness, maybe misguided priorities. Why is it, do you think, that organizations tend to neglect this sort of stuff? What's your experience around that?
Well, what I see is that the focus is most of the time on money, on profitability, especially when you have shareholders who have a fix on EBITDA on the money side. And for a long time, if somebody was ill or couldn't handle the situation, we fired them and we could hire somebody new.
Yeah.
Not in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, it's quite difficult to
Mm.
fire a person that isn't fitting anymore. But the demographic situation is changing.
Mm.
And the wall is turning the ship now, because normally we said, oh, how many human resources do we have? And we had full-time equivalents. And we were looking outside and we saw that enough people were waiting, standing in line to come and work for our organization. And that's completely changed.
Mm.
The demographics are so different than 5 and especially 10 years ago. A lot of companies want to hire good qualified people but can't find them, or
Yeah.
are going to pay an awful lot of money. So suddenly we look inside, and instead of looking at the people on the outside, we say, how can we support our own employees to have less sick leave, to have more productivity, to be more effective? And suddenly, well-being becomes a hot item. And some people call it happiness. Some people call it work pleasure. I don't mind. For me, it's you have a lot of energy in your body when you start working, and when you go home, most of the time you have more energy. And then you're engaged. And that's for me work pleasure, work happiness. And that's what we need.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Like you say, I think, you know, I know we've got listeners all over the world, but I think in most markets, there's a real struggle to attract talent and retain talent, and that when they arrive, that those people are have higher expectations than maybe they
Yeah.
did a few years ago of what good looks like from a career perspective and what they want
Yeah.
to get out of their work.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
what what you see at this moment, that
Mm.
a lot of people who are really talented and come in an organization and aren't taken care of in the onboarding procedure, they leave within 2 months.
Yeah.
So that's about 25% of the people coming in an organization leave within 2 months,
Yeah.
and that's a loss that you can never cure.
Yeah, yeah, it's a vicious circle, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely.
I was going to go on to ask you about what are the signs when, you know, employees aren't satisfied, and I mean that's one of them. Obviously, turnover, and obviously, you know, we're talking here about satisfaction in terms of being healthy, happy, and productive.
Yeah.
What are the warning signs? And I guess like a lot of them are kind of fairly, you know, obvious to a certain extent, but others may be more subtle. What are some of the things that you'd be looking for, or you'd be asking a client to talk about when, you know, they think they've got an issue with this? What are some of the kind of warning signs for you?
Warning signs are especially that you see a lot of people have presenteeism. So
Hmm.
I'm at work, but I'm not really productive. You see people making more mistakes than they did before.
Hmm.
You see complaints coming in from colleagues or clients who say, well, this wasn't a nice conversation we had. You see more conflicts.
Yeah.
And most conflicts are between a manager or a leader and an employee. That kind of signs, and sick leave is one, of course, and especially in the Netherlands, where we have the great situation that an employer pays 2 years the salary of somebody who is ill and can't work. So we can measure much better what's going on within that organization. So yeah, that's what we're looking for. And we look. One of the examples is that we look at people, the percentage of people in an organization that never call in sick,
Hmm.
and we call it the 0 percentage.
Okay.
If that's more than 60%, then it means that those people are happy at work. They love what they are doing. So the higher that number of 0% sick leave, the better it is for your organization.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, most organizations have no clue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting metric to use, that, and yet, so just to be clear there, what you're saying is that that because you mentioned presenteeism
Yeah.
in the same that it wouldn't be we're looking at non-absence, people who don't take sick leave, not from a kind of perspective of, they feel if they took any time off sick, they would be in threat of losing their job or would be
Yeah.
in some trouble. That is a positive indicator that people are engaged and not. We in the UK, we talk about swinging the lead, kind of
Yeah.
taking sick days when they're fed up and they just want a day off because they've got run out of holidays and they can't be
Yeah.
bothered. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I must say, talking about the UK, I see in the UK much better well-being program and employee benefits program than in the Netherlands. So
That's
in the
interesting.
Netherlands, we're starting. Well, we had so much focus on 2 years paying for sick leave
Right.
that we weren't paying attention on prevention and
Mm,
amplifying employees, which is a new word in the Netherlands, that we look for amplifying the well-being of people. And then I found out by companies like Mercer and Howden that in the UK, you're way ahead of the Netherlands. So I'm copying now programs that in the UK are well known
mm,
and try to implement that in the Netherlands. You have a lot of great tools like engagement multiplier,
mm.
which you can use to multiply the positive effects of engagement.
Yeah, yeah,
And those tools are what we are using. You don't measure engagement once every 2 or 3 years. You measure it all the time, 2 times, 3 times a week, 3 questions, and you move on. And then after 26 weeks, we know exactly who is engaged and who is disengaged.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And I'm a great believer in finding what's working and amplifying that
Yeah,
rather than looking for what's not working and stressing about it. It's much more, the rising tide raises all ships. It's much more productive way of doing things.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of the cost, you've alluded to, obviously the cost of recruiting and continuously having to recruit and fill places when there is a higher turnover,
Yeah.
and obviously absenteeism is a challenge. What are some of the other costs that organisations, if you're trying to make a business case for this, because often, you'll get senior people who will either see this as a legal compliance issue that they need to
Yeah.
do so they can stay out of court from a kind of duty of care perspective, and some will see it as a kind of warm and fluffy thing that they do to
Yeah.
placate their employees. But the hardline business facts for those who kind of need to see the numbers. What are some of those costs, Paul, that we're
Well,
sometimes
the
masking?
turnover for an average employee, if one leaves and another comes in, is a
Mm,
year's salary.
yeah.
And I spoke with an organization last week, and they were using 1.5 times the year's salary. I heard Oxford Economics talk about 2 to 3 times the year's salary on turnover. So if one person leaves
Mm,
because he's not happy at work, his engagement goes down, but productivity as well. And during those last couple of months before they leave, productivity is about 40%.
mm,
Then they say, I'm leaving, then you need to hire new people. And if you find somebody within a reasonable time, you will need another 4 or 5 months to get them to the same level where the old one was. So I think it's quite good to have 1 year's salary as a business case. And for sick leave, it's quite easy. Everybody who is at home not productive costs you £400
yeah. Yeah.
per day.
Yeah.
So in a week time, that's £2,000 in 6 weeks. That's an awful lot of money.
Mm,
So we need to look at those figures, even if you're not paying people when they are on sick leave.
mm,
They still, you miss that productivity that they had.
yeah. Yeah.
So whether it's money you're paying or productivity of a combination of both, you will miss those people. Otherwise, you wouldn't have them as employee.
Mm,
So something is missing when they are not there. Um, I did this with the examples of Oxford, and if you put £1 in prevention and amplification, you will earn £4.
mm,
So €1 investing in the well-being of employees will give you £4. Well, that's quite a nice business case, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And in terms of, we kind of touched on this, and maybe we didn't finish it off properly. In terms of the current job market and the amount of turnover, I know in the UK, particularly in kind of sectors like logistics for drivers, and
Yeah,
the salaries have gone through the roof because supply is far lower than demand. There's much
yeah,
more people wanted than actually out there. And obviously this is not a new phenomenon that we've seen in the past. Peaks in kind of in the UK, the running story a few years ago was plumbers. There were no plumbers, so everybody was going to training in to be plumbers, and then there was suddenly an excess of those people, and the kind of foxes and
yeah.
hares sort of analogy of supply and demand. What are your take? What's your take, both not necessarily just on quantity, but also in terms of quality, in terms of expectations, and the kind of current generational gaps that
Uh,
people talk about in terms of what employees want from work now, and are they satisfied with just going somewhere where they can make loads of money and climb the greasy pole as quickly as
yeah.
possible?
I think if we look at generation Y and Z, and especially Z, they have totally different expectations from work.
Hmm.
I read an article this morning that was published by Harvard on the enormous gap that especially management, and they are most of the time Generation X, so
Hmm.
the oldies, see what the youngsters want, and they can't communicate.
Yeah.
So if you are a manager of 50, 55 years old, you're still looking at money, at ego, at status, and that kind of stuff. People from Generation X are looking for purpose. They are looking for the core values of the organization. And I had a discussion. I do trainings on this kind of stuff last Friday.
Yeah.
Somebody said, yeah, some young bloke came in and asked what our core values are. And I had no clue. And I thought, yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
They look for what are the non-negotiables, the core values of the organization, and especially in sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you an organization that is going to take care of my future, of my earth? Sometimes they overact and overreact, but in general, I think it's a good sign that people are wondering, hey, I'm going to work for an organization like Shell or Exxon or whatever. Hey guys, I love to do the work, but what are your core values and what are your intentions with my future? Because I'm here for the next 60 years. You had most of your time. Are you going to take care of my future? And if they get disappointed, they can leave easily. And for 10 years, they couldn't leave. Then they stayed for 2 or 3 years, waited for their opportunity. Now they leave immediately. They are walking and they walk out of the door and they will find another job within weeks. So it's not about the money anymore. So you can't say, "Oh, I'll give you 20% more if you come to work for me." Well, first of all, the colleagues get less, so there can be a conflict. Um, but on the other hand, they are not really interested in the amount of money. They want good money because they are well trained,
Yeah.
but they want to know what the purpose is from their work, and I think that's great. I love to have that kind of conversation with young people who are really interested. Who are you? Who am I?
Yeah.
Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I want to work here? And what can you do to me and other stakeholders to take care of the company, to take care of the world? And that's amazing,
Yeah. Yeah.
but difficult to handle.
Very difficult. Yeah, yeah. I know we hadn't planned to talk about this, but I've just recently, the last couple of days, researching some stuff for a blog that I'm writing, and it was quite an interesting article. And I know this is something that divides opinion, and you can read one article and it'll say one thing, and one it'll read another. But about hybrid and remote working now, and I'll just give
Yeah,
you a kind of like quick synopsis of what I'd read, which was basically saying that a lot of organizations now are finding that the kind of, the convenience thing, which was a big thing, initially, and people loved that flexibility, is now kind of starting to be overcome by loneliness, and that finding that
yeah,
actually mental health problems from people being isolated, working at home, communication skills issues when people are struggling, particularly people who've only ever known a hybrid world, and
yeah,
are struggling to actually be able to articulate themselves in meetings and that sort of thing. And also saying that workloads have gone up by 40% now. They're working at home because it's much easier to kind of offload stuff, and the assumption is that you're that much more productive now. You don't have to
yeah.
commute, and that isn't always the case. So I'm just be interested to get your thoughts on that. And as I say, I think it's one of those things that divides opinion, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily something I agree with, but I'd just be great to get your take on it, Paul.
Well, I hear the discussions as well. And first of all, I think because of COVID, we had to work from home, but it was only 40%, 40% of the employees. 60% need to be in a workplace. So, like hospitals, schools, shops, taxis, that kind of stuff. So, it is some sort of elite group of 40% of employees who could work from home,
Yeah,
and now they can come back to work, and now it's hybrid. And what I see that is missing, that we have a good policy,
yeah,
so we don't organize hybrid working. Because if people stay at home the whole time and are coming to work 4 or 5 hours a week or one day in the 2 weeks, that's not enough for engagement, because we know that belonging is one of the most precious parts of engagement. You need to belong to a group, and it can be online as well, but being part of a real group that knows one another, that's important. So you need to organize it and facilitate it with the right instruments and the right software. But we are still stuck with Zoom and Teams and that kind of product, which weren't designed for hybrid working.
no, no.
So you need to have other stuff which is there, that you can sit around a table and you see the pictures of the people around that table, and you can use material to put on the table and work together. And suddenly, hybrid working is still working together, but online. So I think you need to take care. How do we work hybrid? I know a software company in the Netherlands, they have a theater built, because the guy loves to have big productions. The food is amazing, even for the employees. And you can come to work if you're looking for inspiration, not to work, but to get inspiration. So people can book online. Hey guys, I'm coming in tomorrow morning. Who will be there? This is my question. And people from the whole company will come, not as a team, but just as colleagues, coming in and discuss that item. And they have a sick leave of 1.5%,
Right. Excellent.
because they organized hybrid working. So I think a lot of banks, insurance companies, those organizations, accountancy, used COVID to push people back in their private homes, and see now that it's more difficult to create engagement, belonging, and that kind of stuff. So then I get the mental issues. I get it that you can feel lonely if you can't meet up with your people. So yeah, we should organize it. It's part of human being management.
Yeah. Very good, very good. I agree. I agree. I want to move on, Paul. So, Paul, we've got time just to talk a little bit about what we can do to address this, and this takes us on to some of your work. I've got in my notes here the 7 keys, and I'm reliant on you to explain what those 7 keys are, because I didn't actually put any more detail in my
No.
notes other than the 7 keys. I know I'm hoping that I'm sure that does resonate with you.
Yeah,
So,
of course, of
do
course.
you want to talk us through what those 7 keys are, and if there's any
Yeah.
that you want to kind of sort of focus on?
Well, I wrote a book and it's still in Dutch, but it will be available in English as well. And it's about profitability 2.0.
Mm,
And I was looking at working from the human side instead of the process side. A lot of organizations have protocols, work in processes, organize the processes, scrum about it, that kind of stuff, make it very effective and forget about the human beings. So I was looking worldwide, really worldwide, what will be the difference in human talent management if we look more at human beings instead of process management? And I found 7 keys which are dominant, but in my whole research, I found 16, and I will later on specify one of them, which is about stealing.
mm,
First of all, attrition. Retention goes up. Attrition goes down with about 40%. So the turnover will be much less if we are much more focused on human beings. Because if you ask people, why are you leaving our company? People will say, I can earn money, more money there, or I can go there easy by car. The real reason is that they lack autonomy. They didn't get enough bonding with other people. So we should take care of people by asking, what do you need
mm,
to keep working here? So we can increase retention by paying more interest in human being. As I said, sick leave will go down with about 40 to 60%.
mm,
Effectiveness goes up with 25%. So people are much more effective in what they are doing in their work on an item. Productivity goes up with 20%. And I was a little bit disappointed by the number that if you are engaged and you love your work, that productivity only goes up with 20%. And then the CEO told me, he said, well, Paul, that's day 6 for the pay of 5.
yeah, that's true. That's a good way of
And
looking at it.
I thought,
Mm, mm,
you're right, my friend. And productivity, it's not about pushing people. No, it's what they do from within themselves with their own energy without a manager pushing them to work harder, because then quality goes down and the effect goes down. What they saw that people are much more engaged, that sales internally and externally goes up with about 25% as well. Customer satisfaction goes up with 30%. And very important, the number of mistakes and incidents within organization decreases with 50, 60%. And
mm,
imagine you're lying in a hospital and those people are not engaged and they make mistakes. That can kill you.
mm, mm,
So looking at engagement, especially in those kind of organization, will decrease the number of mistakes and incidents that are on the work floor.
mm,
I think that's amazing. These are the 7 keys.
mm,
Gallup is researching those 7 every 2 years, and you can see per country how we are doing. If you take Western Europe, we are the same. We have about 15, 16% fully engaged people, 18, 19% fully disengaged people, and the rest 65% is in between. If you look at the US, 30%, 35% is fully engaged, but 25% is fully disengaged. Those
yeah.
are the dropouts, and that's terrible as well. So it's not only looking at engagement, but on the other side as well. Um, the number 8 that I wanted to say is that that was a university in the US research the number of stealing within organization by their own employees.
Right.
If engagement is high, it's only a few percent of the people that take something home that is part of the company and
Okay.
is not their belonging.
Yeah.
If they are disengaged, stealing goes up.
Oh, wow.
And it's not only money, laptops, that kind of stuff. It's the coffee, it's from the kitchen, it's all kind of stuff, even chairs that leave and people say, "Oh, where is my chair gone?" Well, so you see that motivation, inspiration helps you to stay within the lines that of the organization. So we stay within the non-negotiables, and it's 16 different items which I found, and I was so surprised that nobody ever talks about it.
Yeah.
We talk about productivity, and one of my slogans is happiness makes money, but we need to work on happiness first because then success and money will come. And we are still focused a lot on success, hard work, success, earn a lot of money, and then become happy. It's now proven it's the other way around. We need to focus on human beings first.
Mm, mm. I was going to ask you, Paul, because the seven keys that you went through were really helpful, and obviously I'm conscious of the limitations of audio when it comes to, like, for people to sort of catch that. Is there, and I'll talk to you. Well, maybe we'll do what I was going to talk about at the end of the interview now, which is to sort of find out if we've got any links that we can send. Now, I've got a couple in the show notes. I've got the
Yeah.
your LinkedIn profile if people want to reach out to you. I've got your website, so Team and Dare. And then obviously you sent me a link to your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
So where's the best place to, if people want to find out more about those seven keys and the extended version of the 16 keys, if they want to find out some more about that?
Well, I will put this slide that I have of the seven keys
Yeah,
tonight on my LinkedIn profile. So
that would be great. Yeah,
everybody who goes there can find it.
yeah.
Um, it's in the YouTube as well. I have a
Okay.
video there on how to increase engagement. That's an animation video,
Yeah,
and it's always scary. I explain all of this in 90 seconds.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And that's the power of animation.
yeah.
It's on my own YouTube channel. People can find it easily, and it's in English, um, and that helps. And as a free gift for all the listeners on our teamandare.com website, we have an engagement benchmark tool.
Okay.
It's a survey that every leader, every manager can use to imagine how high engagement will be if you fill in your email address, and we're not going to hunt you down.
Yeah.
You will get a full report, including those seven keys.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, yeah, I'm going to put that link into you. It's the
Yeah,
teamandare.com. Yeah, we'll put that into the show notes. So if people want to follow up on that, I'm just having a look at your YouTube channel now, and there's a lot of stuff on there. A lot, very rich content in there. So yeah, that's great. That's great, Paul. Okay, so I mean, just wrapping things up then, any final sort of thoughts, takeaways, anything that, if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, wow, there's lots to take in there, any kind of quick, I know it's difficult with something as complex and as deep rooted as this, but any kind of quick wins or low hanging fruit that organizations can kind of grasp, or someone who's maybe not got a huge budget at this stage, but they're trying to kind of be a lone agent within the organization trying to
yeah.
get things done. What would you recommend to them, Paul?
I think the most important part is paying attention to your employees. We call it triple A, attention, attention, attention. We need to start talking as leaders with our human beings, with our employees, instead of being busy the whole day, going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, saying we have an open door philosophy, but the door is always closed. So for me, leadership is about facilitating your employees and asking the question, and it doesn't cost any money: how can I support you to have fun in your work and in your life.
Mm.
And sometimes it will cost money, but sometimes it's just a good conversation where you listen to what somebody has to tell you. So that's our most obvious but most difficult thing to do, is pay attention to your employees, because you will improve the autonomy of people because they feel that they are listened to. Their belonging goes up. And if you listen and ask, what is your talent and how can I support you? The C of competences will go up as well. And then you have the A, B, C of engagement filled: autonomy, belonging, competences. And just by asking really good and open questions.
Excellent. And listening to the responses, I guess. So, yeah.
And then act on it. And sometimes you just say, whoa, this is serious. Give me some time to see how I can support you. And then you go to human being management, not HR management. And then you ask, how can we support them? Do we have engagement benefits or a well-being program to support those people? And you will see it helps. So it's not about millions or tons. It's about a couple of £100 per person per year. And if it pays out by 4 times, then you have 2,000 coming out, instead of looking at those £500 that you invest in people.
Mm. Yeah, and it's seeing it as that investment, isn't it, rather than a cost? So
It's never cost. Human beings can't be cost. It's always investment.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Paul. That's been wonderful, and I think we've had a wide ranging conversation there, and we've explored some fascinating areas. And I think I think often we think we're preaching to the choir when we're interviewing and talking about engagement, because often I think a lot of the people listening in are kind of get it already. But I think it's always useful to have some of those metrics reinforced, and some of those the return on investment of engagement, and also kind of in today's market thinking about the turnover issues that we're facing. I think many organizations are acutely aware of that, and I think the whole thing around those 7 keys that you ran through is a very practical way of breaking that down into something that's very very, very tangible. So I'd like, on the behalf of the listeners, Paul, I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. And as I said earlier in the interview, we're going to put some links in the show notes. So if people want to find out more about you, more embrace some of your work and your ideas more, then we'll give them plenty of opportunity to do that through the links in the show notes. So thank you so much, Paul.
And thank you, Greg, for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure, and you take care, and hope you have a lovely summer in the Netherlands there.
Yeah, thank you very much. The same for you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Engaging Internal Comms podcast. If you've got any ideas for episodes you'd like us to cover in future, you can email us at info@thebigpicturepeople.co.uk, or you can use the feedback form at engagingic.com. If you're not already subscribed to the show via your podcast platform, please do so. And if you could leave a review for us, that would be absolutely fantastic. We have links to other episodes at engagingic.com. All of our previous episodes are available there. And if you're interested in our visual communication services, our big pictures, our learning maps, our explainer videos, and also our live graphic recording, please get in touch with us again at info@thebigpicturepeople.co.uk. Thank you.